Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee, the podcast on the business of video production.
Creatives Grab Coffee is hosted by Dario Nuri and Kirill Lazarov from Labs Productions. Our goal is to share knowledge and experiences from video production professionals around the world. Whether you're a freelancer looking to start your own business or a seasoned business owner aiming to scale your company, this is the show for you.
Join us as we develop a community of like-minded creatives looking to learn and help each other grow. Welcome to the business of video production. Welcome to Creatives Grab Coffee.
Before we get started with the show, let's go over today's sponsors.
Do you have a shoot in Toronto? Do you need crew or a strong production partner to help you with your project? Labs Productions is one of the top production companies in Toronto and your go-to video partner.
With our strong creative skills and extensive network, we can help you achieve your goal. Labs Productions is able to offer you production services, white label services, or finder fees for project handoffs.
Reach out to us on our website at labsproductions.com to learn more.
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and grid fan packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you, and we're all going to have a real good time.
And now, let's begin the show. All right, welcome back everyone to Creatives Grab Coffee. Today we got Alden from Tower 3 Productions. How's it going, Alden?
Good. Thanks for having me, guys.
So just kind of before we get started, give us a little quick intro and background into who you are and who Tower 3 Productions is.
Sure. I live here in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, which is in the mountains in Wyoming. And I moved here to work for a ski film production company, and then I started Tower 3 on my own in 2010, and I was just by myself shooting, editing, doing the whole deal for a few years, and then have slowly built the company with both full-time employees and freelancers, and today we're one of the biggest production companies in Wyoming, and we're more commercial-based production. We do a lot of drone footage. So yeah, I get to live and work in an awesome, amazing, beautiful place and do what I love, which is to make videos.
And for such a long time too, like you, from 2010 till now, it's no easy feat to keep a company going for so long, especially through all the different major shifts in the industry and everything. You mentioned that you were working at another company that was more so specialized in skiing. Is that kind of like are there like any specific kind of niches like that are thriving a lot in Wyoming, or is it kind of more general with a lot of companies there?
So Wyoming is a very unpopulated state, and it's in the American West, so most of the state is ranches, cowboys, oil and gas, and then there's this little pocket on the left side of the state, if you're looking at the map, where you have Yellowstone National Park, Grand Teton National Park, and then the little town is where I live, is Jackson, so it's like the gateway. So here in Jackson, we're at a ski resort. We have it's recreation, lots of summer, winter activities. So here in Jackson, there are a few more action sports based production companies. It's definitely not normal for Wyoming, but just in this little pocket. But, there's several, like the one here that I worked with called Teton Gravity Research is is really, really well known in the field of action sports, and their competitors are like Warren Miller, which is in Colorado, and some production company in Utah and production company in California. So that's sort of where that genre lives. But we're kind of exceptional in this little pocket of winter and summer sports over here in Jackson.
So what made you decide to kind of go out on your own? Like how long were you at that other company, and what was your decision making like to basically go out on your own and start your own shop?
Yeah, I came up through corporate TV production in New York City and Los Angeles, working for companies like MTV, VH1, Fox, and kind of award shows, reality shows. And I was a PA, and then worked my way up to be a production coordinator and then a production manager. So I really learned like the producing side of things when I was just in my intro jobs right out of college, working 18-hour days, driving big 15-passenger vans around New York with gear, and it was a great experience. And then I moved to New York moved back to Los Angeles. And on the way from New York to Los Angeles, I worked at the Olympics in 2002 and helped produce a show about a couple Olympians. And being back in Utah in the ski environment, and I was like, God, if I could find a way to combine production and my love for the outdoors, that would be awesome. Then I went back to LA, continued to work in reality TV. And then I was up here visiting after I had done a big show where I was a production manager and moved 150 crew around the world. It was a show about Richard Branson, and so we had to move. It was this show sort of like The Apprentice, where each location they would do a challenge and one person would win. And so we'd have to move all these people around the world to Richard Branson's different properties. Like, we're in Necker Island, we were in Morocco, we were in Tokyo, we were in South Africa. So it was like this huge job, and I never, even though being in all those locations, I never saw the light of day because I was in the production office like 20 hours a day, just trying to get people out to where they needed to be. So I got done with that show, and I had a friend who lived here, and he was like, come, just chill out, you need a break. So I came, and while I was here, I walked into that famous ski film production company called TGR, Teton Gravity Research. They're like, what do you do? And I said, I produce reality style TV in Los Angeles. And they said, that's so funny, we're looking for somebody to fill a similar role for us. And 2 weeks later, I moved to Jackson. So it was this sort of this serendipitous way of being here. I had a whole plan in LA. I was applying to grad school at American Film Institute. I was going to do the producer track, and I ripcorded, pulled it, decided to take a totally different direction. And at the time, now everyone kind of knows where Jackson Hole is because it's gotten famous just because of the lifestyle and the skiing. But back then, all my friends in Los Angeles were like, you're moving to Wyoming? What? What is in Wyoming? And I was like, just trust me. And so I came here and worked for other people for several years, for 6 years, and built up my experience. And then my last job was before I started my own business, was at a ad agency where they wanted me to set up the video production arm, which I did, and worked there for a few years. And that's where I kind of learned like real estate, events, commercial production. So when I went off on my own, I had the blessing of my old boss. He and I actually worked together on setting me up, which was amazing. And so I just started taking my own clients and have built it from there. And it's been a long time. It's interesting for me to realize, like 15 years I've been on my own. And I have so many people to thank for that, because I have hired amazing people and have an incredible freelance network of people who know way more than me, and I have no ego about that. And I just always try to get people in whose knowledge is just, it's incredible. But I would say my strengths are as a producer. Like, I'm really good at putting things together, finding people, getting projects done, the numbers, so sorry, that was a long answer.
No,
No,
it was good.
it was great, and you pretty much highlighted one key thing about what it was like before you started your company, which is that you were a veteran in the space. You've known the industry, you knew the industry for a while. You listed off so many different kinds of organizations, productions, clients that you had the chance to kind of work with. So you really had a good understanding of the business to the point where it may not have been as scary to start your own shop, because for anyone who's starting their own company, it can be daunting if you don't know the business, or it's either you understand that you don't know and it's daunting, or you don't know that you don't know and you're naive when you start a company, right? Which is kind of a little bit of how Dario and I started, because we didn't know the business when we started in it. But having so much experience and starting your company, what was like one of the first things that you knew that you had to do in order to start growing and expanding quickly because of your experience?
Yeah, so I think I had a couple obstacles. Well, first of all, I was really scared to start my own business, and I had a friend who had started her own, and my brother both said, if you want to make any money doing this, you need to be on your own. Like, you can't really make a great living being, working for other people in the video production space, unless you're like an executive at Fox or something, And so I was like, okay, and it was really scary. And I knew that back, like in 2010, interestingly enough, it's only been 15 years, but people were really still trying to figure out video, like how it would work for them commercially. And so my biggest hurdle was being like, no, you need a video. Like if you're a business owner and you have a web presence, or you have a social media presence, or you're, and so it was just really trying to explain to people like, no, this is going to take it to the next level for you. This is a really good investment. And sort of, I came up against that a lot of like, well, why should I spend this money? And I'm like, well, because in my mind, it was like a no-brainer. So it's just getting people to adopt to that. Whereas now, everyone knows they need video, and they're shooting it themselves a lot of the time, which is, for people like us, trying to convince them they need the more professional version is sort of our hurdle now. But so yeah, I think that was the biggest thing, was just, that, and honestly also being young, being a woman, trying to sell trying to sell the services to people. I had a lot of people sort of saying, oh, you could take 1,000 for this rather than 2,000, or you could do this for 300 rather than 700. And I'd be like, well, no, I mean, those are the prices. But I found myself doing that a lot, taking the lesser amount just to get the job, because I wanted to build up my resume. Needless to say, I don't do that anymore. But that was something that I felt like I needed to do for a few years, was really negotiate my prices down so that I could get hired, which is a little bit unfortunate. But now I think people obviously know me and how professional we are, and they see the need. So it's not like a question anymore.
That happens to all of us.
Yeah.
So, like, especially when we're starting out again, to build a portfolio, to understand the landscape and navigate those conversations. Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, like, when you were working with all those different companies, you were working more so on the producing, like, management side. When you went out and you started doing sales for yourself, what are some of the things that you learned through developing your sales skills that still help you to this day?
Yeah, well, I think I have like a terrible phobia of public speaking. I freaking hate it. I hate it. I have like beta blockers that I take in case I have to get up in front of a group of people. But, initially when I was trying to set myself up here, I'd have to go and present to big groups, like real estate groups, or, event planning groups, or any like business that had several employees. And I'd have to get up and be like, this is what I do. And so obviously that was, and I still hate it. Like now, luckily enough, I don't have to do that. I have other people that can kind of, either come up with me that makes me feel better, or just present on my behalf. But every once in a while, I have to do that. But that was the biggest hurdle for me, was just to have to be really confident in my delivery, be really confident in what I was saying, know what I was saying, research, like, what if they ask me this? I better have an answer for that, or this and that. So I think that was a big hurdle, was just feeling really confident in my messaging and speaking in front of people.
Do those beta blockers actually work?
Yeah. I had to get up in front of a whole auditorium once, and it worked. It worked. I was beyond nervous. And it was like I had to introduce a friend's film for like 10 seconds, just say their name. And even that freaked me out. But I think I'm better now. I'm on a few different boards here in Jackson, so I've had to get up and talk about different things unrelated to production, which has been good for me. So it's a work in progress.
It's probably a lot easier now too, because video calls are such an integral part of like your selling process now, I guess, because a lot of people just don't have time to drive to downtown to meet someone and waste half of their day doing that. Even for those people themselves are probably working from home, where they got other stuff they got to do. It's just easier to hop on a quick 15-30 minute call and then just go from there, right? Like, I think we haven't had to meet someone in person. I think we did it just once since the pandemic started, as like a lead call type of thing. Like, we've only done that one time, so it's a lot easier now.
It is. It's great. I love it. Yeah. Believe me, for a person like me, video calls is really the best. But I have several in-person client meetings a month, so it's not the one-on-one, like that's sort of fine. It's the presenting in front of a group that is like really gets me. But
the good thing about video calls is that it's kind of evened I'm just like thinking about it more, and it's kind of put everyone on like an equal playing field in terms of when it comes to discussing, because to Dario's point, like you don't do it in person as much as before, but like in person when you're pitching, it's almost like you're pitching to, like, especially if there's more than one person in the room, it's like you're setting yourself up in this kind of scenario of you have to prove yourself to the people that you're talking to, just in terms of like the presence. You're up there standing, you're talking to the client, they're sitting down, leaning back, thinking. It's kind of an old school dynamic that puts people in certain roles in that whole interaction, whereas like now in video calls, it seems very kind of, it's a lot easier because that kind of pressure is not there, and it's this more equilibrium that everyone's kind of like discussing. It's collaborative, and it's good for initial contacts, right? And then once you kind of get through that, then you meet in person, you collaborate together in person, and everything goes well. But it's the biggest thing also is a time saver, because how we're always trying to figure out ways to be more efficient when it comes to talking to new leads, to new clients, and what better way to get a face-to-face, while being in the comfort of your own home, looking professional up on top, wearing nice shorts.
Pajamas
Shorts or
exactly. That's my jam. I work from home. I know all about that.
Yeah.
I just remembered this. I just remembered something. We actually did do another in-person presentation, I guess. I think 2 years ago to an marketing agency Carol got connected to.
It was an ad agency, yeah.
It was an ad agency, and I just remembered we actually felt very comfortable. I felt very comfortable going up there, I guess because Carol and I were just bouncing off each other, for one. And then number two would be like, we just know this stuff inside and out.
Yeah.
And number three, like, I don't know, you just get to a point you just stop caring a little bit about like those insecurities. Like I remember
and that
I was
comes
getting
with
tired.
Age, I think.
Yeah, I remember I was getting tired, so I literally just pulled up a chair and just sat down. I was like, I don't care. Like, I don't have to prove anything. Like, what do we have to?
Did you guys get the work?
It wasn't work. It was more so to get connected with them.
Okay.
Yeah. Are they even still around, Carol? That agency?
Oh no, they're a big agency. They one thing that happened with them in the city that it's been happening with a lot of agencies, I think, in Toronto, where some companies some agencies are downsizing or closing up shop, and then their head executives are being scooped up by these other agencies, and they're one of the ones that is still kind of like bringing in other people.
Oh, nice.
But like to Dario's point, like it was a good kind of like exercise for us to kind of see how we are like pitching and talking in person. And obviously, like, you know, if you haven't done something like that, you're going to make some small mistakes here and there, like as anyone does. But
They loved us though.
but I could still see, I could still see though the little bit of like some of them, like there were some dynamics I was seeing in them, you know, where it's kind of like, you know, oh, so you're the ones pitching and we're the ones kind of like taking it. So you can kind of still see that a little bit, but it's very different now, as Dario mentioned. There's like I think the more you kind of just go from like a human perspective, and you know, and just talk to them normally, then it'll be natural, right?
Totally. Yeah. And now, I mean, I'm in my mid-40s. I have a lot more confidence. And like you said, I know what I'm talking about. I'm not questioning myself anymore. And, you know, just from being in this business for so long, I feel like I can speak from a place where people respect me. And yeah. But, you know, when I was 25 and starting out, I was really nervous about it. So...
Yeah, it comes to exposure. Like the more you get, the more meetings you do, like the easier it gets over time.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So what about your team size right now? Like how big is your team?
Yeah, so full time we have. I've always sort of run with like 1 to 2 full time, because as you guys know in this business, and this climate, just everyone being able to work from wherever. It's like I have an office attached to my house that has its own entrance. People can come and go, and there's like 3 workstations in there. And so we have an assistant editor and then a production manager. So that's my team. And my production manager, like I said, I had an employee, well, I don't know if I mentioned this, but I had an employee of 10 years who just left in December. And she and I really had built the business up together. And there was no hard feelings. She just started with me when she was really young and wanted to try a totally different career. So we left on great terms. And she gave me 6 months' notice. So over the last 6 months, we've trained another girl. And her name is also Alden. What are the chances? It's so weird. So her name is Alden Forbes, so we call her Forbes. But she's really young, just graduated from college last year, but she's great. Like she's, you know, for me at this point in my business, I don't want to be managing the day-to-day. I want to be overseeing the big picture, like, you know, writing the proposals, the estimates, you know, overseeing the bookkeeping, overseeing the freelancers. So, and like doing an edit here or there, going on a shoot here or there. But, you know, I am really lucky to be able to be at the point where I can kind of have somebody that's like there doing the day-to-day, you know, responding to emails, doing little edits, doing little shoots, and or finding other people to do the shoots. So just managing the productions. So right now we have her, and then we have Rachel, who is our assistant editor, and her job is just taking all the footage we shoot and stringing it out and doing little edits. She will also go with us on shoots and be an assistant. So right now we're 3 women, which is awesome. We've always been women, you know, full women based in terms of staff. And then freelancers, I just have this incredible network of great girls and guys that I work with up here who are probably have like 6 go-to shooters that at any given moment I'll use. I have one out tomorrow. I have one out on Friday. You know, so we have some little shoots going on. And then I have about 2 to 3 editors that I really trust. And one of them was Kira, who just left. So, you know, I am kind of looking to fill that like go-to editor role. And I have a great guy named Will who is kind of becoming that person. So, yeah. So it's a small team, permanent, small full-time team, larger freelance team.
Yeah, that's become more of the norm now for a lot of our production companies of similar sizes like yourselves and us, where you need a small core group of people that are full-time and committed to the business to help it grow, but are also filling in roles that help the management, the growth, the expansion. When it comes to specific job roles like editing, production, and stuff like that, there's a lot of people and resources out there on a freelance basis that is a little bit easier to tap into rather than trying to get someone in full time. And like you said, because of our network, or because of this like climate that we're in with in terms of work in the industry, to survive, you need to be as nimble as possible. Like obviously grow depending on your work and how you need. Like we know production companies all over the world that would either be like a 1 or 2 man band, or some that are like 30. You know, it works for them because that's how it is. But everyone has their own unique needs, and you have to figure out what you need to operate. Like obviously, if Dario and I, it was just one of us doing all this, it would be very difficult to be solo. Luckily, him and I lean on each other for that. But
I could handle it.
Yeah, maybe he could. Who knows?
I'm sure both of you could handle it. It's whether or not it would be efficient, is the question. I mean, it's just, and both of you obviously bring different strengths. And that's why I'm the first one to admit, I have a lot of experience shooting and editing, but I would way trust my shooter Paul to go do a real estate shoot, because he has this incredible eye for how he moves the gimbal and how he lights the space. And so I really try to find people that have really specific strengths. But I mean, I'm still a great editor. I can still put together a great story. So I'm comfortable doing that on my own, but most shooting, I like to have people in who are just really, really great at what they do.
I'm wondering about the Wyoming market. Are there a lot of companies in your space, and is it very competitive? Because it is a tiny, it's a big state, but also tiny at the same time, right?
Right. Yeah. So, like I was saying, here in Jackson, there is this sort of burgeoning production world, and I would say I compete with maybe 2 other people for bigger jobs at any given moment. The 2 or 3 of us will be bidding on the same projects, and those are mostly Wyoming-based projects, or Jackson-based projects. Because this is a tourist town, there's no state income tax in Wyoming, so we have a lot of millionaires and billionaires who park their money here and have property here, which then brings this tourism infrastructure into play, which is already here because of the national parks. So there are, even though it's a town of 10,000 people, in the summer it triples because everyone comes to their second or third or fourth homes. And, there's the tourism-based businesses like a rafting company or a restaurant or a business that caters to property management. Those are the companies that reach out to me to bid on different projects. And those are pretty good budgets. They are all, like I said, realizing how important video is to them and social media. So I'd say there's a lot of freelance videographers, but in terms of actual production companies, I'd say maybe me and 1 or 2 other ones in Jackson. In Wyoming in general, I would say I'm one of the top commercial production companies in Wyoming. We just shot a cool video for this company based in Texas who is trying to do clean energy, and they had us go down to where they're doing there's a lot of oil and gas in Wyoming, and we went down to one of the oil zones and shot this huge rig being wheeled in with a drone. I mean, this thing is this half of a football field sized rig. And then we watched them put the derrick up and time lapse that. And what they're doing is carbon capture. So a lot of these mines will just throw their emissions into the air, and you can just shoot these plumes of smoke just polluting. And this company out of Texas is trying to do clean energy. So they have a technology that captures that carbon before it's released. And they are having us do a series of videos for them around Wyoming with these rigs that they're building to do that. So that's an example of something more Wyoming based that we would do, but Jackson based is, go shoot this sled dog race that just happened in the square, or go shoot this ski. We don't do a lot of like hardcore skiing, or go shoot this event that's happening out at the resort. So it really depends. Like you said, I've had to be really nimble and be able to kind of take on those bigger jobs, like the oil rig thing that's like, a couple different shooters, that's drones, that's time lapses, that's OSHA standards where my shooters have to wear hard hats, and that's like a bigger kind of commercial production. I feel like you guys kind of do similar, maybe corporate stuff like to that anyway. And then there's smaller ones that is just like social media for a company based here in Jackson. So
Just wondering, because you said you mainly have like 2 other competitors when you're bidding for bigger projects, and I'm just wondering, how do you overcome, like, what are some of the obstacles you're facing when you're just competing with 2 other companies, and how do you overcome those?
yeah, that's a really good question. Obviously pricing. People will ask they'll give me a proposal to bid on, and I know what I think I should charge, and then I get in my head about it, and I'm like, well, what is everyone else going to charge? Should I try to come in lower? And 9 times out of 10, I'll kind of stick to what I know, and sometimes I don't get the job because my prices are too high, and and I'm okay with that. Like, I've come a long way to get to that point because, like I said, I devalued myself or our services a lot. Like, oh, I'll just go down so I'll get the job. And now if I don't get the job because they're not going to pay what I know that it's worth, that's okay. But that's been a tough journey. So that happens here and there. Another thing that happens is, so we're mostly like, most of our videos are web-based, social media-based. Like, rarely are we showing anything on a movie theater screen, but a couple other companies in town have these massive like red camera systems, or we run an FX3 and other Sonys. They're like the small, but they shoot incredible footage. But I think sometimes people associate like good production with like the massive camera system. So they see that rolling around and they're like, oh, that guy knows what he's doing. So sometimes I think that comes into play. I've invested more on like the Sony side rather than the Red side. But I think those Red cameras can look really impressive to people, and they kind of take that to be, they really know what they're doing, whereas we do too. That's not as big of a deal, but I think in the past maybe that has been a factor. And I try to tell people, like, you need that camera when you're doing like a massive like
commercial
film screening. Like, your video is going to be this big on a web page, so we can shoot 4K. Like, our cameras are amazing, but sometimes that doesn't translate.
It depends on who you're pitching to, right? And if you're pitching to like a direct to client, 9 times out of 10 or 10 times out of 10, really, it really doesn't matter what camera you're using, as long as you have the basics of what you need to produce something great for them. And like you said, you've invested in a camera system that helps you deliver as a company, and it's a good investment, right?
Right.
We've heard of production companies that would invest in higher end cameras like Reds and stuff like that, but the problem with that obviously is that it's not good for longevity because you're not going to use them all the time. It's all about using stuff that works for you. And it was interesting, one thing you mentioned about when you're pitching, you kind of have a certain number in mind typically when you're pitching for these types of projects. It makes sense to stick to those, because if the more and more you compromise on that, there's a certain cost to benefit ratio that if you kind of surpass that, then you're spending more time than effort on a project that you can be using on other ones, right? Like, we know some studios here in Toronto where they have a very strict threshold. like for example 10,000, they don't do anything below 10,000, even if it's like 9,500, or anything close to that. Like we've noticed, like like because sometimes they would send us some leads, where just to kind of see if we would be able to even take it on sometimes. But like for them, their cost benefit is like after 10,000, they're going to be losing on opportunity costs to work on other projects down the road as well. So you have to figure out what area you're able to be comfortable in and be comfortable to say no to, because otherwise you're going to struggle. You're going to struggle down the road if you say yes to everything, right?
Exactly.
I just had an idea about the camera talk. Because oftentimes it's like, oh, the competitor might have like the red system and everything. It could also be a good idea to just add that as an optional add-on to like our proposals, where we can pitch to the client. It's like, if you want to go with that route, we can go rent it out, and renting it out is just so much cheaper than investing in it, right? And it's like, in terms of cost, it'll basically average out to be the same as what they would be charging anyways. So it's like, if you want to go that way, we can go there, or if we go this way, it'll be that.
Yeah, and that's happened a few times where they're like, well, what's your camera setup? And I'm kind of like, it's whatever you need, because I have access, like you said, to all my friends that own the Red, or the camera people who own the Reds are all friends of mine. So there has been a few times over the years where I'm like, look, this client really wants a Red, I'll just hire you for the day, so but I really try to tell people, like, it's just not, because a lot of our production is very mobile and nimble. So like a Red system, you can't put it on a gimbal, or you can, but you're like, it's like a massive, but like, putting it on a little gimbal is impossible. So, and a lot of our production is more, sort of low profile, sort of run and gun, a little bit more documentary feeling. So unless you're doing like a really beautiful sit down interview or stationary tripod shot, I just find that, like, I don't know, I really love the Sonys that we use. They're easy, they're light. So yeah.
Yeah, I've been on some shoots where it was more so like a commercial, but you see the gear they use, and when they use ours, it just increases not just the amount of time needed to set up and shoot, but also the personnel needed, right? Because once you get into like cinema camera range, it's like, okay, you can't focus pull yourself, you need a focus puller, and then and now you're adding crew, and then
you have a crane, and
changes all your costs. It changes all your costs once you start getting into bigger camera systems, because you have to get heavier duty tripods, heavier duty sliders. You can't do the old school, cheaper Amazon sliders, on a Red system. That thing is not gonna balance.
That's not gonna fly.
Well. No. And and as Dario mentioned, like smaller cameras, it's a little bit easier for one person to operate, but the second you start getting into these bigger systems, you need someone to focus pull, you need someone to do steady cam, you need someone that's looking at the lighting. Like, you need to hire more people, and then you get like I said, like, it depends on who you're pitching to. If you're pitching to clients, they're not going to look for ways to balloon their costs just to get a fancy camera,
Right, totally. Yeah, and we will get bigger corporate videos, like a big finance firm that is coming in to do a big offsite here, and we'll shoot a bunch of interviews, and we need them to look just absolutely amazing. So I'll have my friend with the Red come, then we'll do a second camera angle, and we'll do all these beautiful lights, but shoot with daylight behind them, and it's just like the most beautiful. So we have those capabilities. Like Tower 3 Productions, I call myself a full service. Like, when we're actually shooting our own client stuff, it's more pared down, but we do location scouting and we do crewing, and I can put together, like I said, my background isn't as being a producer. So if somebody comes in to town and says that we want to shoot a car commercial, I'm like, okay, this is what you need. You need permits to shoot here. You cannot shoot here. You can't shoot drone here. It's national park. You need, This is when the light is best at this, so we can kind of like produce those bigger shoots for people, which I do from time to time as well.
It's almost like you're a fixer and like a production service at the same time, right?
Totally. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm just wondering, because you're like a woman in a mostly male-dominated industry, did you have any obstacles you faced when you first entered the space?
Well, I mean, such an interesting question. When I was after I graduated from college in Los Angeles and I moved to New York and was first an intern, then a PA in New York City at these huge corporate production companies, sure, there was definitely some, like, I was the only girl a lot, doing like I said, driving these vans around, hauling this gear. But I feel really, really fortunate to say in my whole career, no one has ever, crossed the line with me or I had a mentor in Los Angeles, a man who took me from show to show to show. He was like an executive producer, and he would produce these shows, and I became his sort of second, and he would bring me along to all of his shows, and that was really so I don't know, I was really lucky kind of back in those days when I was working in the big cities. Since I started my own production company, like I said in the beginning, I think that came into play. I was young. I was just starting out. There was everyone else besides me was a guy and trying to do the same thing. Now I still am the only woman-owned production company in Jackson. And I don't know to my face if that comes into play, if I'm getting jobs or not because of that, but I really don't think so. I just think at this point I've built up a reputation, and we have so many happy, very pleased clients over the years that I think I'm respected. I respect my peers. There's just a real nice...
No, one good thing, obviously, is that your work speaks for itself. Your professionalism comes through whenever you're talking to people. So it's good to know that, like, that's what's keeping you going throughout this industry. And it's tough for everybody, right? Like, everyone has like their own unique set of challenges whenever you're trying to get into this space. Some people might have a harder time running a production company but do great while freelancing, whereas other ones might not be doing as good freelancing but would be better like running their own shop. There's such varying degrees, and that's one thing we try to keep stressing on the show and when we're talking to everyone, is that your unique situation is you. You can't see what other people are doing and think, oh, I should be doing that. It's like, you don't know what struggles they're having behind the scenes. Their struggles are probably something that you figured out, and vice versa, right? So it's trying to make sure that you're not comparing yourself too often. But yeah.
One of the biggest obstacles I think we faced was ourselves in this industry. Like, because all the roadblocks, if we look back and analyze our history, it's always been... I told
like
you
the fire alarm.
Your attention, please. This is the concierge speaking.
This is the first time. I knew it was going to happen eventually.
On site. The fire department has been notified and is on the way. Please listen for further instructions.
He might have to bail on
fire?
the podcast. Oh my God.
No.
Your attention, please.
Oh, they have to repeat it.
They have to repeat it. I'm telling you, it's going to happen again.
Activation on site. The fire department has been notified.
You think this is the first time it's happened? It's only happened like once or twice during the day.
Thank you for your cooperation.
Our building doesn't get too many. The across from us are 3 buildings that are connected via a walkway, and they get it daily.
Ugh.
Like maybe twice daily. And the thing is, because they're connected via that walkway, when one of them gets it, all of them get triggered.
Yeah, that's terrible.
So that's
terrible
the
design.
dumbest design I've ever seen in a condo building. So all 3 buildings are like, I see it across the street every day. Every night one of them gets triggered, like constantly.
Oh my God.
Okay, we got a break so Dario can continue his point. So yeah.
Yes. So
obstacle.
Going back to obstacles, I find that the biggest obstacles in our company have always been ourselves. Like, if I look back or analyze like our history, it's always been one of us setting up a roadblock, be it like a mental roadblock or just I don't know, like we just wouldn't do something that we needed to do, maybe because of fear or anxiety. And it's only once you overcome those that you look back and you're like, what was I doing? Like I was just like handicapping myself for no reason.
Yeah. I've had those moments, and I'm the first one to admit I've just done some things with some client work that I look back on, and then, yeah, and I'm like, oh, no, that wasn't the right call, but I'm learning as I go. And, but yeah, like you said, I think we all have our own set of challenges, and, I have my peers in this tiny town are incredibly talented. So, if I don't absolutely nail a project with a big client, it's really easy for them to be like, oh, well, we'll just see how these other people do. And then if they do great, it's like, oh, suddenly they're working with them. But it's funny. It's like there's this attrition, and then they kind of come back. And it's just like, people kind of play us off each other. Well, oh, Tower 3 did it this way. Can you do it better? So I've just had to really learn to be like okay with the ebb and flow of a small business where, like I said, this time of year, we're really slow. We just don't have a lot going on, but I still have to pay my people, and that gives me this like pit, and I'm like, ugh. But then come May, June, July, August, September here for us is like drinking from a fire hose. It's just like all the people want their videos because it's beautiful out. All my nonprofits want their nonprofit fundraising videos to be shown at their summer events. All the real estate, all the weddings. I have a whole wedding side of my business. We do like 20 wedding videos a summer. Those are huge, so it's just like, so I have had to really learn to be like, okay, I'm really slow. January is really slow. And I tell myself that every year, even though it's been 15 years. So.
Yeah, no, it's interesting you mentioned also the wedding side of the business, because a lot of companies who do weddings or corporate videos / commercial projects, usually people tend to separate those two, but you kind of keep them together almost. So what has that been like for you when it comes to kind of like managing the two different types of clientele? Because it's very different pitching to wedding clients versus corporate and commercial.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. That's such a great question. For a while, Kira, my old employee, and I would just do it all. And the wedding clients are you're right, so different from a corporate client. I mean, it's so personal to them. And every little thing is so personal. And then we get into the edit, and they're like, well, where's Uncle Bob? And where's Aunt Mary? And, and the wedding planner's involved. And it's tedious. It's hard. And so one summer, Kira came to me and she's like, I can't do this anymore. Like, I can't shoot weddings on the weekends, because I had been like, I'm tapped out of weddings. No way. And so she sort of started doing them. She's like, then she was like, no way. So what I've done is I've sort of separated that side of the business off, and I've hired somebody who he's not full-time, but he's full-time in the summer because he's our wedding video producer. He has his own email. He runs the show. Like when I get an inquiry, I'll send out our price sheet, I'll get the contract locked in, and then I just push it to him, and he oversees everything from that point forward. If he can't shoot it or edit it, he will find the freelancer to make sure it works. He and I have a sort of a compensation split that works for both of us, and so that's been really nice. So it's sort of off our plates. Although trying to get paid after all these weddings are done, I just finally got the last payment from a wedding we did in June. So that's always like, then that falls back on me, is to get everyone to pay us. So I am involved here and there. But like that's an interesting, weddings are really interesting. It actually is a great test of a videographer, because it's like covering a 6 to 8 hour live event, and you cannot miss certain things or people are going to be pissed. Like you can't miss the first look, or you can't miss the cake, or you can't, and so it's, I do not, like my wedding video shooters I'm like, you guys are a special breed, because it's like I said, like covering a full-on live event with a lot of really very emotional clients involved. So, yeah.
I'm just wondering, how do you manage to focus on both businesses, because they can take up a lot of time, right?
How do I run both businesses was the question. And so it comes back to that seasonality thing. Summer is when they all happen. I have Josh set up to go. That's his only thing he does in the summer. So he runs that. Most of the proposals and contracts happen from now until like, people will hire us all summer, but most are like from now until May. I'm contracting, I'm estimating, So it actually works pretty well because I'm doing a lot of wedding inquiries now when we're slow to build up our summer production schedule for weddings. And then when Tower 3 is busy doing more corporate stuff, and nonprofit stuff, real estate, Josh is overseeing the weddings. And there's a little bit of a dance in the office of making sure we're backing up all the footage, making sure he is coming in after each wedding, making sure all the footage, we've had some issues with that before where footage has got, it's mostly like a storage issue. It's just making sure everything's together. And then he'll kind of oversee all that. So it's like a dance that has been working out pretty well. We're pretty much maxed out at 20 weddings. So I'm trying to, but I have a hard time saying no. So Josh is like, don't take on any more. I'm like, okay. And then we'll get another one. I'm like, oh, but, so just keeping that dance going, but having him oversee the wedding side of the business, the production side, the actual shooting and editing and client correspondence is extremely helpful.
Yeah, the operations are one thing when it comes to running a wedding company versus a corporate company. I mean, the one benefit of a wedding studio is that you can develop more kind of systemic systems in terms of like how you go in terms of the whole process, because most weddings are very much the same or very similar to the point where you know what kind of work is going to be expected with each one, so you can kind of price it out very easily. But the one challenge obviously is, how do you brand yourself or market yourself as a company, especially if you're doing both services, because they're such different businesses? Have you found yourself facing some challenges, where some corporate or commercial clients, would be like, oh, you do weddings or do you do corporate? Because you have both of those portfolios on your website. So what has that been like navigating it for you?
Yeah, I don't know. I've always had that question. Like, I hope that the fact that we have a wedding side of the business doesn't discount us from the rest of the things. And I have had that thought of like, should I take it completely off and do like a whole different like Tower 3 weddings website so that it's not even related? But I don't know. I think that we rank really well in SEO, organic SEO, for just video production in Wyoming in general. And so then people go on the site and the first thing they see, we've structured the website, is just a lot of like corporate style video reels, drone reels, nonprofit reels. So then you have to click on a different page to see wedding video. So I don't know, that's a really good question. And it is something I've thought about. The market here is pretty small. And I do like to market us as like an all-in-one, we're a one-stop shop. But that's something I've considered, is sort of just carving it completely out and having it be its own website, not even on ours. So,
yeah, because there's a flip side also to what you just mentioned, where like you may not be having that issue so much on the corporate side because you've structured your website where the first thing people see is a lot of corporate and commercial-based content. So you're fine on the corporate side, but now what happens when a wedding lead comes to your website and they don't see any wedding content now?
Right.
Do you feel like you might be losing out on some? I mean, maybe it works out for you because you can only do 20 weddings a year, obviously, right? But like, how many leads would you potentially be losing because they don't see any wedding content right away? It's another step for them to kind of get to, right?
Yeah. No, it's a really good point. If the wedding business continues to be as strong, I have thought about that. A lot of our wedding video leads, though, come from wedding planners in Jackson who they get the client, and then the client's like, oh, is there a videographer? And they'll put us directly in touch with them. And then we'll just, so I don't, I need to look at our rankings for wedding video, Jackson Hole. I think we're not one of the top 1 or 2. I think we might be 3. There are some other people who, like you said, they just do that. But yeah, maybe we would be top 1 or 2 if we had our own website. So that was like just weddings. So yeah, it's something that it's been on my mind for sure.
I just want to ask one of my last questions, which is if you could go back in time to when you first started Tower 3, what is something that you would do different?
What I would do differently is, like I talked about, I had a little bit of, I wasn't super confident yet in my abilities. I wish I would have just had a lot more confidence to go out and just really go out and pitch Tower 3. It took a while. It took, 5 or 6 years to really get to where we were competitive in the space. And I think it could have happened a lot faster, maybe even longer, maybe 7 or 8 years. I think it could have happened a lot faster had I just been like, look, this is who I am, this is what I do. But instead, like I said, I think I did a lot of like undercutting myself and kind of like doubting myself. So I wish I would have had more confidence. I wish I could have had the forethought to know, like, this is going to be an actual thing. I just had a lot of self-doubt. Like, is this going to work out? Can I actually do this? Is this, all these other people I'm competing against are so good, so just kind of knowing that I was a player as well would have helped, I think. Now I know, but back then it was just, but I think that comes a lot with, I'm sure you guys have experienced it too, starting a business and having that doubt and feeling like you are up against a lot,
Yeah, and with anything you do or anything that's worth doing, you're always trying to figure out how you can improve, and sometimes that thinking can kind of get in the way of like simple tasks, which is one big obstacle a lot of people face when they're running their own company, where it's like you might be pitching a project and you've pitched the same thing many times, but then you think to yourself, oh, but is this different? Is this a different circumstance? Do I need to maybe pitch a little lower, or just to make sure we get it, and sometimes the biggest challenge is remembering to try to stick to your systems and not be affected with your decisions, when you have outside factors. Because sometimes one of the biggest things a lot of people in our industry face, especially with down seasons or time where you're not making as much money, you're a little bit more willing to compromise on your rules on terms of like what projects you can take on, just to make sure you're getting work coming in. But then, and so, yeah, you might get some more income from that, but then down the road, who knows like what other opportunities you missed out on because of that. But anyway, like the whole point is like, you have to be sure of, who you are and what your capabilities are. And as a result, you'll be able to kind of push forward a little further. But
totally.
I
started my business right around the same time as some other guys, and they had that confidence. And initially, out of the gate, they were crushing it. Now, we're similar, but they had that kind of blind confidence that I just didn't quite
when the competition is doing really well, and it's very, very close competition, like how it is for you in Wyoming, like you said, there's like a few players there and everyone knows each other. So seeing some do better than you, it can affect you in many different ways, Whereas Dario and I, we're in Toronto, which is a huge city, and there's thousands of production companies. We kind of have a way of kind of like blocking all the noise out a little bit more and just trying to focus on us, which is what we're trying to do more of now, which I think has been helping. But
don't forget, those competitors have the same doubts and fears that you have.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Some people are just good at putting up masks and, smoke and mirrors, but they're going through the same issues.
Or Instagram pages, Don't trust people's Instagram feeds.
I know. I know. You're so right that, you know, if I bid on something and I don't get it, I know exactly if it's who did. It could be one of two other people or companies here, for the most part, 99% of the time. It would be nice to be in a more sort of ambiguous space where I wasn't so always positive of who else was getting the work. But like you said, Dario, it's true. My competitors were all, you know, we're all fighting the same little battle here. It's not even a battle. And strangely enough, for as small as this town is, there's enough work to go around. So I don't, you know, now that I'm kind of marketing myself for more broader Wyoming, I'm getting these other, all other work around the state. It just doesn't, and that's part of the growth of the business is just knowing like, okay, I didn't get that job this time. That client went this direction. They'll come back. Or if they don't come back, an iteration of them will come back. Or I'll work with, you know, so I've just had to be like, it's a lot of radical acceptance, like just, okay, it's gonna be okay. You know, it's gonna be okay. And it, for the most part, always is, you know. Sometimes they're slower, sometimes they're faster. My main priority is just keeping my people working. I want to, like during COVID, that was like my initial, I was like, oh God, I just have to keep Kira, you know, employed. And luckily we had enough work, strangely. I don't know if you guys felt this during COVID, but I felt like video production like skyrocketed. I don't know why. I feel like it did here. But everyone was like going back to their websites, looking at their websites, looking at their marketing. So we actually did great during COVID. But yeah, it's just taking care of my people and keeping us relevant. And that's having an SEO person and a social media manager and all those things to keeping us out there, keeping our company out there.
I just wanted to touch back on another thing you mentioned, or I guess, I don't know which one of you mentioned it, either you or Carol, in terms of being anonymous and bidding wars. But I actually noticed that even here, when I would ask some of my leads who else they were talking to, it did turn out to be like usually the same two other companies.
Yeah.
So even in a big city, like you might end up competing with only a couple of other people, right? Because again, they only go through like the first 2 pages at most.
Totally.
Or like the Google Map pack. And so you'll always be grouped in with whoever's ranking on there.
Totally. Yeah, and I do invest in that. So I think we're number 1 or 2 for Jackson, for Wyoming video production. And then, you know, I get a lot of 5-star reviews on purpose so that we can be up there with that Google Business Map thing. Yeah.
Good. Yeah. And when it comes to like, when you're pitching yourself against a lot of the same companies, you're always trying to also think of different ways to kind of stand out or to even like bring in other new business. You mentioned one key different thing you started doing was you started marketing yourself a little bit more broadly in Wyoming as a state rather than just in your smaller kind of pocket. Like how did you go about doing that in terms of marketing yourself to like a broader region?
Yeah. That's a good question. I got involved with the Wyoming Film Office, which is just a state organization that helps people who are looking to do production in Wyoming. I've put my name out there to lots of different productions that do production in Wyoming and the West. And then, like I said, hiring a social media or a SEO organic search manager. That was a big investment because it was not cheap. And that was like maybe 3 years ago. And he has staggered this plan for me where I didn't have to pay it all at one time. And he kind of did these fixes over the years. But he's helped me in the way that my website reads, the different keywords I have, where it's not just Jackson. It's a lot of like Wyoming production. So now, and it's really worked really well. So now when people search, you know, video production in Wyoming, I come up 1 or 2, and then I got a call for a bid on something Colorado the other day because I came up in some search results, which was interesting. So yeah, I think that SEO is a huge component of that, and just being strategic about how I'm structuring my website. And then social media too, although, you know, I've worked on my social media here and there, and I mean, it's great. But for corporate clients like that you guys have and that I have, they're not going to hire somebody because of their Instagram page, like that kind of client. Maybe a wedding client might, or a local tourism business might, but like a oil and gas company from Texas, they're not like, oh, this girl has 1,000, how many thousand followers? I don't know. So I think, I don't know if you guys have found that's not a huge factor for me yet.
No, it all comes down to who you're pitching to at the end of the day. And, if you have a certain clientele that you know what they value and you know how to appeal to that, then that's all you can really do at that point. But we're kind of reaching that past that 1 hour mark. And like, we have like a little tradition at the end of every episode. We like to ask how people came up with the names for their company. So what made you land on Tower 3 and not Tower 4 Productions?
That's a really good question. So I live here in Jackson Hole. It's a big, we have a huge ski resort, one of the biggest ones well-known ones in North America. I grew up skiing. I'm a big skier. It's one of my passions. So when I was trying to name my company, I was like, God, I have no idea. And a friend of mine said, well, what's your favorite ski run? And I was like, oh my God, I'm not naming my company after a ski run. Like, that's so lame. And then I was like, God, my favorite ski run is this run called Tower 3, which is under the 3rd tram tower of the Jackson Hole tram. And it's this like steep chute that kind of comes in between these big cliffs and rocks, and you go down, and I love it. It's a great run. And then the more I thought about it, I was like, yeah, it has a ring to it. It really does. And I sort of started asking my friends, and they were like, that's such a great name. And I like it because it sounds like, if you're not from here, it can sound sort of production-y, broadcasty, it's got a production sound. But if you're from here, oh, Tower 3, the ski run. So I went with it, and it's been really, really successful. I think the number 3 is powerful, and so I liked to incorporate it in my business name. And then we abbreviate it T3P, which I like too. It can be easily abbreviated. So
nice. It's a great name. It definitely sparks curiosity. That's the main thing when you're coming up with a name for a company. Like, have it spark a little curiosity. And it's got a great story to it, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But anyway, so if anyone needs to find you, it's tower3productions.com. Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
And Instagram, is it the same at Tower3Productions?
Yep, and it's the number 3, so not.
And the number 3.
I was going to clarify.
Yes.
No.
Yes.
But Alden, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for sharing your experience and your story. And it's a great conversation. Thank you.
Yeah, it was so awesome. And Dario, hopefully your apartment building isn't on fire.
I hope not.
Sounds quiet there. now. I don't see smoke, so he's good.
Yeah.
Watch, it's going to come on any minute now.
Well, it was awesome talking to you guys. I really appreciate what you're doing and reaching out to people like me. I think it's really important and awesome. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Creatives Grab Coffee. Please make sure to follow and engage with us on Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, YouTube, and your favorite podcast app.
Creatives Grab Coffee is created by Labs Productions, a video production company based in Toronto, Canada.
Creatives Grab Coffee is also sponsored by...
My name is Miran. Welcome to Canada Film Equipment. We are a boutique rental house based in Toronto. We are here to help you guys out with all production sizes. Feel free to contact us to get a quote if you are a production house and you're looking for lighting, camera packages, or lighting and group band packages. You can see our contact information in the link below. We are more than happy to help you guys out. Make sure you follow and subscribe to creativesgrabcoffee.com. Thank you.
Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Matt. Welcome to Audio Process. We are a boutique audio company doing location sound, sound design, post-sound, ADR, Foley. We service equipment. We do all your audio needs here in Toronto. We got you covered. Come on down, audioprocess.ca. Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and all of the other internet things to creativesgrabcoffee.com. They'll be waiting for you. I'll be waiting for you. And we're all going to have a real good time.
Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.